Didn't catch me
All
this.
right, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Collective Bargaining Podcast. Tonight we have a special guest. Tonight we have Dr. Carla Flagg. Sorry on the butchering of the name, but we have Dr. Carla Flagg, and she is a distinguished professional in the field of sports health with a comprehensive background in physical therapy, athletic training, strength and conditioning. Her career is marked by significant contributions to education, rehabilitation, and sports performance, particularly in the realm of athlete care and injury prevention. Dr. Flagg received her bachelor's degree in health sciences and pre-physical therapy from Howard University. She continued her education at the same institution, earning both her master's and doctor of physical therapy degrees. Throughout her academic journey, Dr. Flagg also obtained certifications in athletic training and as a strength and conditioning specialist. These qualifications have equipped her with a broad skill set, enabling her to specialize in areas such as ACL injuries prevention, return to play protocols, athlete performance education, pre-participation injury risk assessments, and sports concussion management. We welcome Dr. Flagg as an honored guest. She has been now also working with the WNBA as head of rehabilitation with the Washington Mystic. We are honored to have you here, and we look forward to having fun on this podcast. Behind the scenes, I was thrown below the bus by my colleague. I'm going to call him out here, of course, because that's what we do, right? We call each other out. But luckily, I had the intro for Dr. Flagg ready to roll just in case.
I see. I knew you were always
You know,
prepared. I knew
I
it.
learned from you how to be clutch, man. You're the clutch guy. So I took some notes, man, just in case. So Dr. Flagg, I want to just welcome you again. It's an honor to have you here on the podcast, and I can't wait to dive into, a lot of what you've covered in your career and where you are today and some of the things that you see within the positions that you hold. That I just talked about within your introduction. So, welcome to the podcast, and we look forward to the episode today with you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Definitely. How has it been just, this year in this position over the last year with the Washington Mystics? We're going to dive right in, by the way. And of course, I did introduce Dr. Flagg, but of course, we have our co-host, Mike, and we have our
Thanks. I
honored
appreciate that.
diplomat in Kyron, who has experienced the business side as within athletics, and also too as a professional athlete. So we welcome Kyron. We're going to be diving in, Kyron, into the change in the company, of course, which we introduced a couple weeks ago, and the progress and some of the things that have happened with Eton.
Okay.
So not Eton, but with Panola College, and one of our last guests that was on the show, right? So we're looking forward to that as well as we
Absolutely.
proceed.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yeah. All right. So we're gonna head right in. The last year for you, Dr. Flagg.
Mhm.
How has it been with the Washington Mystic? Just that experience being head of rehabilitation with a WNBA team. What is it like being in that position?
Yeah, it's how can I describe it? It's a very high energy.
Yeah.
I don't want to say high stress, but decent amount of stress depending on what's going on throughout the year, but also a very fulfilling job. I've been in this field for about 25 years now in different capacities. And to be honest, I had said that I was not going to come back into sports. I kind of just wanted to step away, and I did for a little while. And I always say that, I had plans, God had other plans. So I ended up back in sports and specifically in women's basketball. And it has been a great joy. Part of the most fulfilling thing about the work that I'm doing now is that I really enjoy getting up and going to work. In spite of all of the things that I may face when I get there, in spite of a lot of the unknowns of, is somebody going to wake up sick this morning? Is everybody going to come in feeling okay? Or am I going to have to, make some sort of adjustment right before practice? Is the coach going to want to do something different? There's a lot of unknowns. You kind of have to be ready for any scenario. But I love the athletes I work with. I really enjoy my colleagues and the coaches that I work with. And, ultimately we get to make it fun, right? The athletes always say basketball is supposed to be fun. So we try to keep it light. We try to create a healing environment. And, at the same time, make it so that they can do what they need to do because it's their career. This is how they make money.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you a question here, and of course I'll let Mike come in as well. So both you and Kyron have something in common. So you've started obviously Team Sports Injury Consulting, and Kyron is also the founder of CLIQUE Sports Management Group. And you guys are both in positions where you look at athletes, you look at their performance, you look at obviously there are differences where you're focused more on the injuries. What really is drives you within that industry? You're looking after. So Kyron has the foundation. You see him flying to Panola, looking out for his stars, so to speak, as we call them, right? His performers and those athletes. You're in a position in the WNBA where you're constantly looking after human beings. What drives you within that field to do what you guys do? And that's a question that I have for both of you, within that field.
Kyron, you want to answer first, and then I'll give
you. Yeah, I can. Well, I think when you have an athlete that you believe in, and you trust the process, and the kid has worked hard to get to the level where he's at right now, you want to be there for that kid. You want to make sure that he's okay. You want to check on him. I think that has been, what have drove me over the last couple of years, just seeing this kid blossom into the player he's right now. And I want to be there. I want to be showing that I am there for him. If he needs any help, if he needs to talk to me, if he's going through anything, I'm there. So I think just knowing his trajectory and what he's capable of doing in his area of expertise drives me to be there for him every single day. And whether it's friend across the country, whether it's being there at his training camp, whether it's just getting him trained that he needs to get, I just want to be there. And in Dr. Carla's case, I guess she loves fixing players, getting them right for the next game. I assume that, right, Dr. Carla? But for me, just being there for Enel in this case and wanting to show him that, he has family in the stands. He has family support, yeah.
Right. And Enel he's referencing is Enel St. Bernard. If you want to know more about him, check out 2 episodes back. He was on the show, so definitely check that out. Wonderful story. Back to you, Dr. Flagg.
Yeah. I just want to see people perform at their best. I want to see them do well. Like Kyron said, these athletes have dedicated their lives to the sport and to being able to play at the highest levels. And I don't really want to get in the way of that at all. I want to see not just them in their injuries and their dysfunction, but I want to see the good things too. Right? I want to be able to maximize the things that they're doing well. We always say it's a partnership. I try not to dictate unless I absolutely have to. But the athletes that I work with, the good thing about working with um, basketball as opposed to like American football or something like that is it's a small roster, right? 10 to 12 people. Um, we can kind of break it up, my colleagues and I, and we can kind of have a core group of people that we just get to know their bodies really, really well. So that when they get to the point where they come in and say, oh, this is hurting today,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
spent enough time with them where I can say, okay, anytime that hurts, I know I need to work on your neck or I need to do something in your shoulder. And I can just go directly to it because oftentimes we don't have a whole lot of time, to get them to the point where they feel like they can perform at their best. So that's what drives me. No 2 days are the same. I've worked in a lot of different settings and we kind of just do the same thing over and over again. For me, it's the challenge of being able to not just teach them how to take care of their bodies, but also
Right.
to learn. They're teaching me just as much as I'm teaching them. So it's kind of one of those things that it never gets old.
I would imagine. Hey, Mike, I think
Yeah.
you
I
were
mean,
about to dive in.
yeah. So we were talking earlier about what you do with progression, like how you work with athletes. For the audience members that do not understand or know what specifically you're talking about, can you just run through with us like a little day-to-day activity?
Yeah, sure. So, with the background in physical therapy, I'm trained to work with um, a wide range of the population, anything from birth to the elderly, anything from a broken ankle to a stroke. Specifically in this setting, we are tasked with making sure that the athletes feel good enough to practice and play. So, on a day to day basis, that usually looks like coming into the building. Honestly, I start before I leave the house. I check my phone to see if anybody has called me overnight or texted me anything, and then that may start some conversations that need to happen before we get there. Kind of check in with the coaching staff as soon as I get there, and then I come into my office, which is the athletic training room. Usually in there we have a few like medical tables where the players can lie on, and we may do anything from stretching to types of deep tissue massage. We may use different modalities and machines to try to help their bodies feel better. Various things with our hands that we can do to release areas, and then try to come up with a few exercises that may help to either stabilize or mobilize the areas that we're working on,
Okay.
so that they
Okay.
can feel like they can get done what they need to. Sometimes that requires a brace or some sort of taping or um, some medicine, right? You may
Yeah.
have to call the doctor and say, hey, this is what this person is complaining of today. Can we give them some medicine? And then we have a performance team. So the strength and conditioning coach that is with the team, they do a battery of tests. They take them through their lifts for the day and get them ready to perform on the court. So we may have to go to them and say, hey, so-and-so is having trouble with her ankle today. Let her stay within, a range that's comfortable for her or, something like that. So it's a lot of communication. You cannot do this job and be shy. You have to talk a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in your field, in the various leagues, you have what's called a electronic medical system.
Mm-hmm.
It's called an EMR,
Yeah.
right? And the NBA uses that. The WNBA has also used or has an EMR system.
It's the same system as the NBA.
Same system as the NBA. Okay. Now, was that a recent change, or has this been a system where was it did it have to go to a collective bargaining agreement?
I see what you
Shout out to the podcast.
So,
But before it was strengthened and mandated.
yeah, so to my understanding, part of our job as healthcare workers is we're always supposed to keep notes. right? Because if you didn't write it or you didn't document it, then you didn't do it. And it's a good way of us understanding what we did that worked and what we did that maybe didn't work. As time has gone on and players have become more aware and how do I say this? People have become more litigious as far as, I'm going to sue them because they didn't tell me that my, whatever was torn. The electronic medical record has become that much more important.
Yeah.
So my understanding, when I first started kind of working part-time in the league during the COVID lockdown, they were just transitioning into this new system. So everything that had been in the previous system was kind of grandfathered into this system so that it would be identical to what the NBA uses. Is it a perfect system? No. There are some things that take me a lot longer than they should to get inputted into it every day. But it's a good way for us to organize our thoughts and, keep track of what's happening with each person. So as far as the collective bargaining, I'm not sure what was in their last agreement, but I'm pretty sure that this was a part of it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Because I did see that it was in use, but what I came across was that there have been issues in the past in terms of how much information is put in there, and couldn't really understand, why there wasn't really the mandated approach back then. But I think that has changed now with the importance of having all those details in. Now, is this, do you have someone that interacts with that system, or is this
It's me.
pretty much you? Okay. Okay.
If there was one thing that I could hire somebody to do, it would be to do that part of the paperwork. But
Right.
fortunately, that is the one thing that we have to do. And so
Right.
even though the system is there and it's been improved and everybody is mandated to use it,
Right.
it's not always used effectively. People don't always input the information that they need to, which comes up sometimes when a player is traded from one team to the next, or if you're trying to get some sort of background information.
Right.
Sometimes it can be hard to find what you're looking for if somebody didn't prioritize documenting the information. So yeah, there's still some work to be done in that area. You can't force people to sit down and do their job, but you can only hope that it gets better with time.
Right. Again, thank you for the information share there and the clarity.
Yeah.
So I guess, Mike, did you have something to follow up with that? I wasn't sure. We lost you there for a second.
Frozen.
Now, I think we lost him again. I think he's struggling with the internet, so no worries. I'll try to cover for him here. But definitely, one of the things that was found in one of the older studies is that women, when compared to the NBA, have suffered more injuries, in particular the lower extremities, and with a greater number of in-game knee injuries as well. Why is that? If you don't mind me asking.
So there, over the years, there have been a lot of hypotheses as to why that is the case. What is most what has the most research backing is essentially stuff like training, right? Training female athletes in the same way or in similar ways that you train a male athlete, which means you're going to have to load them. You can't just give them some light weights and ask them to do, some leg extension and expect that everything is going to be okay.
Right.
You have to train them to withstand the demands of a game. 4 quarters, you're going to have to pay attention to diet. You're going to have to pay attention to rest and recovery. So, unfortunately, it kind of started off as this, they're women, we can't and that was even evidenced by the staff. I mean, we're just now getting to the point where most, I would say not even all, WNBA teams have a full-time strength and conditioning specialist, which means
Right.
somebody that's there all the time just to focus on their weight training, conditioning, recovery, a lot of testing, strength testing of different muscle areas to make sure that their tendons can handle them jumping 100 times a game.
Yeah.
So if you don't train them specifically, then you're going to have injuries for sure.
So we've seen a lot of fans, right, in different leagues across the world. Injuries have become profound, whether it be social media casting more of a light on injuries and team injuries and how it impacts performance. And I do have one or two graphs to show you that I'm hoping we can, cast an eye on and dive a little into. But has there been do you feel any sort of added pressure when you see fans across the world, for even in your league, looking at the state of a team's injury report, right? Where you have multiple injuries, performance is down because every couple weeks either you have multiple players out, and that has an impact on performance, right?
Sure.
As a professional who is head of rehabilitation, right? Do you feel any sense of pressure at times when doing your job, knowing that social media has kind of shed a flashlight on all of the areas surrounding the game, and now you have data publicly accessible and these subjects are in rotation out there, or is it more like tunnel vision for you where you're not really focused on the outside, you're just focused on the job and the expertise? What's it like for you with that question?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to just block it out, right? Because I'll say this, half the time what you see on TV, on social media is not the truth, or it's only part of the truth anyway.
Right.
So if I know what's really going on, I mean, there's been times I've been sitting in my house seeing things, not just in the WNBA, but in past in my career. Seeing things scroll across the TV on ESPN about people that I'm taking care of, and I know it's not true.
Right. Right.
So
yeah,
you can't chase down a lie, right?
Yeah.
And only we know what's happening from day to day. Just because somebody had an ankle sprain and you say, "Oh, I had an ankle sprain and I was back in, 3 days," it doesn't mean it's the same thing. No two injuries are the same. There's factors that are contributing to that injury. So I just kind of speak with what I know. I've been in situations in my career where so many people have gotten injured that, the spotlight was on the sports medicine staff and people, looking at even trying to get rid of us. But all we can do is present the facts. Every situation was different.
Right.
It has to do with the surface that they were playing on, or the type of shoes they were wearing, or some of it
a lot of variables. Lots of variables.
It's just sports. You can't control somebody running into somebody else and wiping them out,
So with that, I want to segue into a point for Kyron. So Kyron,
Mike, okay, before you go, I have a follow-up question for Dr. Carla.
Oh, okay, sure, of course, man, of course.
In terms of dealing with a star player, right, and Audrey mentioned social media, seeing what's going on, hearing about injury, do you tend to feel pressure to get a star player back on the court, or do you just follow the normal recovery period, getting the doctor to clear the player, or do you feel pressure at all?
I mean, you feel the pressure, sure, because there's everybody wants them to play, right? People are coming to the city to them. The coaches want them out there because maybe the game's not going the way that they would like for them to go. But my number one job is to advocate for the safety and health of the athlete.
Yeah.
So there are times when you can kind of say, okay, here are the risks. It's up to you if you want to test, the waters. And then there's other times where it's point blank. it is what it is. There's nothing that we can do to speed this time up.
Right.
You have to allow the body to want its body.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
so Kyron, I have a question for you.
Okay.
It with your company.
Yeah.
So you have athletes, right? That you would have gotten into agreements with, etc. In the case of Enel, right,
Right.
where he is one of your prime athletes.
Yes, correct.
Now, in college, we know that it leans heavily on performance. You don't have necessarily the same sort of team working directly with a player, right? It's more shared resources, especially when it comes to the college's basketball team, etc.
Right.
Do you see things when out there where it raises your concern? When it comes to injuries, right? So when Enel is out there, you go to the games, you're at the games,
Yeah.
you've played at a professional level, right?
Mhm.
And so you've been through rigorous trainings, you've worked with teams and rehabilitation professionals. Do you see things when out there that make you gasp? When it comes to Enel and other athletes that you've worked with at the college level.
Yeah, absolutely. The good thing is that Enel's team, they have a professional trainer and they have a good recovery room. Like, this guy is pretty good. So in the NJCAA championship, Enel was playing with a sprained hand. Like, I think like one of his fingers or two fingers were pretty bad.
Okay.
So he was playing hurt. And
Right.
to see how they wrap that hand so he can play, right? I'm still looking at him blocking shots and just going, ooh, like, I'm pretty sure he's getting, he's hot in the hand. But
Right.
like, this guy plays through injuries, and his mentality is that he wants to play at the highest level. So yes, I am concerned when he's playing, and I tend to lean on the team trainer a lot. His name is Jackie. He's pretty good, and he had given us pretty good advice to deal with, So I feel a little reassured that he will be taken care of. But for the most part, yes, I'm always concerned when he goes down. If he's he's on the floor, he gets swiped to the head, So yes, it's a concern for me also. I
Understood.
believe that the trainer is good enough to take care of them.
Okay. So I have a question, right? And this may resonate with one person, two people on a call. If I wanted to take a course by the name of PHTH 713, who would I have to contact for that?
well, it sounds like a physical therapy course, so that would probably be.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about this course? So, we do our research on this show, right? So, and
Y'all are pulling that from my memory bank that I have.
and so what is this course about? Now, the label for the course is Intro to Therapeutic Exercise, right? And can you tell us a little bit about where it's taught and what you're trying to accomplish when you're offering in this offering, so to speak?
Sure. So I do not currently teach the CAT class. That was one of the classes that I taught when I was an assistant professor at Howard University. I went back to my alma mater to get back for a few years. And the course is for entry-level doctor of physical therapy students. So in their first year of a 3-year program. And it's basically the foundations of exercise as it pertains to rehabilitation. So in order to get into the program, they already have prerequisites that go over, exercises for healthy people and the body's physiology, how it uses the blood and the energy and all that other stuff. So we take this to another level. It's the introductory course, so we're not covering everything, but we are looking at exercises for different muscle groups and how to modify them based on the patient's ability or the player's ability. what positions they can be done in. We get into the physics of it, how much, forces are on the lever, which is the limb of the body and the joint. And so that the students have to do practical exams where they not just learn this information for the test, but they have to take each other through some of these exercises in the right position, giving them the right cues, just like they would if they were, in a hospital or in a clinic, based on a scenario that we give them, and they're graded based on that.
So, is there a reason why this course is not taught by yourself anymore? What's the reason?
So I had to make a decision at some point in my career. Again, I wasn't particularly planning on going back into sports. And so teaching was a good way for me to kind of stay connected to the profession without essentially being burnt out,
Right.
And then what ended up happening was, again, the pandemic came. I, got an opportunity to go with the Washington Mystics into the WNBA bubble, which we call the Wubble, and did that and was still teaching remotely since everybody was online. And then after about a few months, I kind of said, I still love this. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy the students, but this is where my heart is. And so I just kind of decided to take a leap of faith. At the time, I did not have an offer for a position with the Mystics, but I just, kind of said this is what I want to do with the rest of my career. So here I am.
Oh, that's good to know. And yeah, it's when you see someone that has started their business, they've studied at the highest level, and they have worked with numerous organizations consulting, and now they're head of rehabilitation in one of the league's most respected sports. When you see a course that's offered from them, it raises an eyebrow, right? So definitely, it's a little disappointing that it's no longer offered with yourself teaching. But hey, I it's just something to note, right? But
I might have to revive it for
we might have to look into that. To be honest, we might have to look into that. And I do want to apologize for my colleagues and issues with the internet. It's beyond his doing here, so out of his control. So you may see him popping in and out. So don't mind us there while we try to sort out that technical issue. Okay.
No
problem. I got another question for Dr. Carla.
Yeah.
She's ready.
Sure, I'm ready.
Sure. Okay. So, look, I know you have seen many injuries in your career. Serious, probably not so serious.
Mm-hmm.
What sport do you prefer to work with? I know you probably work with some football teams. Which sport do you prefer to work with athletes? Football or basketball?
It's different. That's a hard one because I like them each for different reasons.
Right.
I'll be honest, it's probably either one of them. My favorite is probably track and field. And then basketball is probably second, and then football. I don't know if I'm just getting old, but the violence of football. I used to be like, you just okay, there's a bone sticking out, sure. But I'm like, oh. So, and then just there have been a lot of improvements and injury prevention in American football, but it's a violent sport. It's not a contact sport. It's what we call a collision sport. It's basically a car accident happening on every play. So sometimes it's difficult to reconcile some of that. And probably the worst injuries that I've seen, meaning permanent paralysis, head injuries, things like that, have come from football for sure. Over the years, I've just kind of I've I'm grateful for the time that I spent with a lot of football players, but I'm a little bit more of a track and basketball person. And while I love track and field, I enjoy being able to be in climate controlled buildings in the summer and not have to deal with the elements outside like I have to with football, rain, snow, cold temperatures. So I always know what's going to be happening on the inside of a basketball arena. So that's pretty easy to plan for.
Okay.
So, with the WNBA, whether it's Synergy Sports in the 2010s, or Advanced Stats Pages, which came about in 2016 thereabout, her hoop stats, which was major around 2018. Then there was a league announcement that they would be working with Second Spectrum. And that would kick off in the 2024 season.
We hope.
Does that impact the type of data that you can now tap into from a rehabilitation perspective? And are you already using the technology now that even though the season hasn't started, are you sort of piloting the technology behind the scenes already to test it? Or can you dive into that for us?
Yeah, sure. So our sports performance team, which is the strength and conditioning coaches and the data scientists, have already started to integrate the data from Second Spectrum.
Wow.
The the NBA began using it this year. So because we're connected with the NBA team, our sports performance staff has been able to look on and track certain metrics with them. We were already doing a really good job using different information from different companies that are now going to be automatically integrated into Second Spectrum.
Right.
So for us, a lot of that is not going to change. It just means that we're going to be able to go to one place to look at the data,
right,
as opposed to having to pull it from 2 or 3 different places.
Yep.
But there are other teams where this is brand new technology, and they have to really. It's a learning curve,
right.
So
And
just to see how it.
And just so the audience understands the technology we're referring to, Second Spectrum, rather than using manual entry, someone sitting down and physically tallying any sort of data points from the game itself, now you have video technology, sensors automatically picking up some of the instances happening live on the court.
Yeah.
So that helps. I mean, it's night and day as to how it helps someone focus in rather than having to focus on the actual data itself, the entry of data itself. Now you can focus on what you're seeing live in the game and make sense of it live during the game. So it's a monumental step forward in technology for the league, and it's good to see that you guys are already diving into that. That's pretty good.
And the application of it for us is how many accelerations they had during the game, how many accelerations they had during the game, how much jumping they did, how high did they jump, what was their average, what was their peak, and all of that. So for some people, they basically sprint, not just run, but they sprint over a mile a game, which is a lot of fast bursts over the period of time. So we get that information, we keep track of it so we can find out what the norms are for that person or somebody in their position with their similar height and weight. And then from there, especially as the season goes on and we get more data, our sports performance staff can send us information that says, hey, this person looks fatigued today, or this person had an unusually high number of accelerations today. So they may need a little bit more attention and recovery.
Yeah.
They want to.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
This is night and day.
Yeah, we
night and day.
Information both before the game and after the game, so that we can, hey, come here for a second. Let me do really quickly, or I want you to get in the cold tub today. I know you don't like it, but some of your numbers are pretty high. Let's make sure we get some contrast back home, or I'm going to sign you up for massage tomorrow as part of your recovery or something like that. So all of that is and it helps us because now we don't have to guess, you know.
Right.
Um,
So I'm going to zoom in so everyone can see.
mhm.
What we're looking at here on the screen are total injuries across the board for the WNBA from the 2023 season. And we've, what's done here is it's categorized into the type of injuries. I think I saw a smile on the doctor's face in
Mhm.
looking at some of these numbers because she's all too familiar with so much of it. So, does anything? I think you're familiar with this. You've probably seen it many times.
Mhm.
What stands out, of course, is the knee injuries and lower extremities of what we talked about before, right?
Yeah.
So you'll notice the knee stands out, the foot stands out, which can be many things. The ankle specifically stands out as well. Um, is there anything that can be done from a league standpoint, from a head of rehabilitation standpoint across the league for all teams to combat what you see here happening with lower extremities?
Oh, you're gonna have me telling our business here. Um, okay, so one of the big differences in women's basketball is that these women are with us for 6 months out of the year, and then the majority of them go somewhere else and play or work in some other capacity in order to supplement their income, or it's a game that they love, so they keep playing. We don't have any control over what happens once they leave us. Um,
Right.
so they could be overseas in another country, playing the whole 40 minutes, practicing 3 hours every day, lifting weight. There's things that we try to kind of meter out and pace them through. We don't have any control of it, or not lifting weights at all. So then when they come back to us 2-3 days before training camp starts, we then have to deal with the load that has been happening beyond us. So
Right.
sometimes there's just not enough time to manage those things, and or maybe some teams don't do. I don't want to say they don't do their job, but what everybody does is kind of dependent upon the resources that they have available to them. And then eventually that there's going to be an outcome. It can be positive if they've been putting in certain work, or it can be negative, right? So
Right.
that's where some of those things come from. For the incoming players, we are very different from the NBA, whereas we don't have a combine. So
Right.
we're limited in the information that we're allowed to gather before somebody is drafted.
Right.
And as we know, the national championship was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, and the draft is next Monday.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
Yep.
they're flying to us, within that week. So there's not much time to rest. Many of the players that are drafted still have to finish school, take final exams while they're trying to make a roster for a team. So there's a lot of uncontrollables. It would be very nice for us to be able to get our hands on some of these players before we bring them in, even if it's just to prepare and say,
Right.
okay, you need to work on this over the next few weeks.
Right.
So yeah, by the time they come to us, there's not much time, and then on the other side, basketball is a contact sport,
It is.
right?
It is.
So
It is.
there's going to be people, running into each other and hitting the floor and trying to knock the other person down and things like that. And again, those are incidental things that happen. You can call a foul, but if they're injured, the foul doesn't really matter.
Right.
Or now we're down one person.
And so it's amazing because everything you just said, I came up with 4 pillars affecting the game, and you just listed each and every one of the pillars in almost exact order. Almost, So I had the limited time between the NCAA, which we just saw, and shout out to the champions and the runners-up. Amazing games.
Great game. Got a chance to go.
But the turnaround time between the Final Four and the WNBA training camp does not make sense at all. It does not make sense at all. There's literally zero time to turn around. The overseas competition during the WNBA offseason, you have the international competition during the NBA season, like Eurobasket, right, and others. And you have the general long-term wear and tear, right, where players outside of the season, where you just mentioned you have zero control. So it's really mind-boggling how you solve that. From my perspective, just looking at the dates, I was like, I don't even know if you can, no matter how much you throw at this, due to the nature. It may have to come in the form of the financial side. And securing these players to a point where they don't necessarily. I know there's a huge conversation about equal pay, but I think this, when you research it, you'll see that the subject, why there's a fight for this, it goes way beyond that.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just equal pay. It goes to a point where these players are trying to, and it's not just the players, it's the league. They are trying to really secure that financial security so that players don't have to go off to Russia. Players don't have to go off to another league in the off season and put their bodies through literally a second season, an annual year. So it's really grueling. And then you have to come back in the training camp and you're bound to pick up an injury. So I have a lot of respect for what you have to face in that position.
Trying to research and call people and get all of the preliminary stuff done. It is a lot, but I will say this: our organization is really good. It's gotten really good at giving us the flexibility to monitor the athletes, no matter where they are in the world. So there was a point in time this winter where I almost flew to Poland to see a player because she was, having some injuries. And the only thing that stopped me was that she decided to just come home early.
Wow.
Instead of continuing to play, because she wanted to take care of her body.
Yeah.
And prioritize the WNBA season. So she took a pay cut, but for her, peace of mind and her sanity. I have flown to different places throughout the country to check on a player for 3 days and, give them treatment. And so we try to do the best that we can to keep everybody, keep our pulse on people as much as we possibly can, but it's impossible to do it as much as we maybe want.
So I have another chart here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this shows you the team winning percentage versus total games missed due to injury. So on the bottom axis, or your x-axis, you have the team winning percentage, right? And you have total games missed on your y. So this shows you the impact of injuries. Now, you do have some outliers, but you can clearly see, you have a better winning percentage, and you win more games when you have less injuries. So there's a clear correlation with that, right? Now, it's amazing how much time these athletes miss, right? In some of the there was a study between 2015 2019. I think it was found that of 195 total injuries in the WNBA, there were a total of 1,352 games missed, right? At one point, there was even a crisis as it pertained to injuries in the league during that period. I'm not sure where the league stands now. I know that there are injuries, including we'll even touch base on Shakira Austin coming back, maybe in time for the beginning of the season. And but definitely, it's when you see something like this, right, which clearly speaks to the performance of the team versus the injury rate. What sort of response does this get from you in in your field, when looking at 2023 in summary, how do you go about reacting to that type of data in your position?
I mean, again, so obviously I have insider knowledge about
Right.
what happened to us in 2023, what happened in each one of those injury scenarios,
Right.
2023 that outside people have. What it says to me is if teams want to win, and if they want to be successful, then they're going to have to invest in their staff. They're going to have to invest in hiring enough people so that we can give each player the time and the treatment that they need. We're going to have to invest in a full-time strength and conditioning coach and probably an assistant in order to be able to not just provide them with the training that they need, but also to have time to collect the data, to analyze the data. I mean, a lot of times the data scientists are up, if the game is over at 10 p.m. on the West Coast, they're up at 2 in the morning looking at data.
Right.
And getting it ready for us the next morning. So it really, to me, points to invest in your staff, invest in the people who can try to work in these areas to try to minimize this. Again, you're not going to have, a 100% satisfaction rate, and some things are going to happen.
Right.
But if I can have one person just focus on rehabbing a player who's going to miss time because they're injured, and I can take care of the ones that are remaining that are going to still try to play, that still need to play, then everybody has the opportunity to as opposed to me having to split my time between,
Right.
I have to take care of this person because they need so much one-on-one, but I have all these other people that I still need to get on the court, and everybody loses in this situation.
Okay. No, that's good to know, because from your perspective, I mean, you see so much more than the average person looking from the outside, so that's really key to hear. So in terms of the excitement going into this season with the Mystic, Shakira Austin, had just released, there was a clip that showed her working with the coach. It was very brief, so it was a couple seconds.
Yeah, we're
Are you
background when that's happening?
my next question to you was, are you usually involved in this process when a star athlete is out, they're ramping up, there's rumors that they may be ready for the start of the season, and then all of a sudden you see a 20-second clip taking some shots, Are you normally involved in this process?
I'm always involved in that.
Okay. So
I'm always involved in that process.
Yeah.
Partially because an athlete is going to be an athlete, right? So half the time, and not just in Shakira's case, and it doesn't matter if they're a star athlete or somebody who we're looking at investing in over the next few years, we still have processes that we have to go through and things that they have to clear before they can move on to the next step.
Right.
The problem is that once you put an athlete back into an athletic environment, you're going to default to what they want to do, right? So sometimes it's little things like, hey, make sure that you pay attention to where your feet are. And other times it's like, how did you just do that Allen Iverson, juke move, spin around? You're not even supposed to be doing it.
Right.
Kind of have to be there to be the voice in the back of their head that's like, hey, slow your roll. We're not there yet. So between myself, my colleague, the coaches are really good at, if they see something, is she allowed to jump today? Are we able to do this with her today? So we work on full plans for each person. And as they reach certain goals, certain metrics, we are able to move them to the next,
Yeah.
I have one question for Doc. Well, actually, no. One suggestion, Doc. Shakira needs to be back. I mean, I've seen her play a couple times playing for the Mystics, man, and it's a loss. I mean, so whatever it takes, we need Shakira back.
She's doing great.
She's doing great.
Say this. I cannot, go into any details.
Yeah.
Right.
Every time I see her, she surprises me with something else.
Good stuff. Yeah.
A natural athlete, and let me tell you, she is hungry. She is hungry. There are some things that she wants to do, and some people she wants to see on that court. So we just have to make sure that we do it in a way that is safe and in her best interest, and in a way where she can be successful for the long term. I'm not a proponent of sacrificing on the front end, unless it's obviously, game 6, or this game that
really on the line.
really, really on the line. But otherwise, you just have to kind of pump the brakes.
Right.
When it's time, we let the bull out the gate. It's not coming back in. So we have to be smart about that part too, and not sell any false hopes or expectations to her. But I love working with her. I love having her around. She is a special athlete for sure. So we're excited.
Thank you for sharing that. And, my next question is going to go to Kyron. So, Kyron, the last time we had you on the show, you had recently launched a business.
Right.
And, recently there was a name change to the business. It's now called the CLIQUE Sports Management Group. And, could you dive in, tell us what's happening there and, just the dynamic?
I thought we just get a little more spice it. I wanted it to be a little more catchy, a little bit more local,
Right.
It's a local company here. You registered in Grenada, so I wanted to have that indigenous feel to Grenada and sporty also. And, it's all about getting buckets and clicking in the right time. So try to sum it up like that. And it's going good so far. It's definitely a big change. And it's people who we are,
right,
as a people,
right,
as the team around me, the group of us that work together. That's our identity, being a clique. So I think it was a good call, and I'm excited about it going forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it, man. And the noise that I'm telling you, man, I felt like, a relative on my team just won when I, during the NCJWA tournament, man. I seriously, when you guys won that game after the show, I mean, there was nothing short of celebrations happening here, right? So definitely that, I'm gonna be following Panola College and seeing where things go. I know we're now entering into the off season, of course. So, and you guys had mentioned that there is quite a lot happening this off season with the market where he could potentially go. So there's going to be all sorts of discussions happening behind the scenes there. But the future is bright. That's what we know for sure, right? When it comes to
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to start with a camp here in Grenada, trying to put this camp on the end of May, a big camp. I'm going to have his assistant coach come down. I have Coach Gary Maitland out of the UK. He's my very good friend, Ethan Thomas, and his son Malcolm going to be here too.
Wow.
So it's going to be a special camp.
Yeah,
big camp. It's kind of one of the the biggest camp we're going to have here, and it's just the quality of the camp is what is going to be special. You have to talk to the participants, and Ethan share his story. His son just about to go to his D1 college, Villanova in Pennsylvania, so he can share his story, his journey through high school. Just talk to the guys, So excited about that camp next month.
Thanks for sharing that, Kyron. Looking forward to all the great news going forward with the camp and where he ends up potentially in the transfer portal. A lot of things can happen, right? So
absolutely.
So one of the things that was on the list of things to go through was Paris is this year, and I know Dr. Flagg is going to be involved in the Paris Games. Could you tell us a little more about that? Unfortunately, she won't be, helping our country or where we are right now, the United States, in this situation. But could you tell us a little bit more about the country that you'll be sort of supporting the athlete from, and of course, just what's the mindset going into Paris? As it's a departure away from the WNBA and that sport in particular. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I am the physio for Team Dominica,
Ah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I work with a a triple jumper who was born and lived part of her childhood in Dominica, and then her family moved to the United States, and I had the pleasure of working with her while she was in college at the University of Maryland. Her name is Thea Lafont, and she is one of the top triple jumpers in the world. She's actually the most recent indoor world champion in women's triple jump. And so, we got a chance to go to Tokyo. Unfortunately, she had some great jumps, but unfortunately, she had a couple of fouls and missed the medal stand. So, right now, the mindset is that we going back, to get what we came for the last time. So, I'm excited for that. Dominica will probably send one or two other athletes in different sports. I'm waiting to kind of hear who that is now, but and so I'll work with all of them. But primarily, I've been working with Dia for the last 12 years, I'd say. So we're gonna try to close this one up with the medal this time.
All right, all right. It should be exciting. A lot of people are looking forward to these games, and there's quite a lot of hype building up as usual for any Olympics, right? So that's going to be quite the experience. So Mike had a question for you as well. What profession
Mhm.
were you most interested in before getting into what you do today? What what historically have you, as whether it be as a child or in young adulthood, was there another profession that just that you wanted to dive into, and was it completely different from what you do today?
So it is completely different. My mom calls me her indecisive child. I probably wanted to be about five or six different things as a kid, but one thing that I really wanted to do then, and is still very much a part of me now, is music. And so
Ah,
it's something that I do, whenever I can. I don't have as much time to focus on it right now as I would like, but hopefully in the future. And that's, whether it's just, singing at church or being on a stage somewhere and performing with a band or something like that.
so I'm holding my head right now. You know why? Because before you joined the call,
Hmm.
myself, Chiron, and backstage, of course,
Uh-huh.
I ran into a video 16 years old of someone leading what seemed to be a very, not your small choir. I'm talking about a very large church musical, right? And the person leading the charge was you.
Mm.
So it's interesting. So here's the thing: we sometimes do segments that are unauthorized for our guests, so they don't know it's coming. And I hesitated on showing,
Oh
because
no, please don't
you
show.
know, I no. I can't, because I hesitated on it, and I completely choked up. Now that you're actually off of Mike's question,
Yeah.
I dropped the ball, man. I dropped the
Yeah, you
ball
did. You
completely.
did.
Now I'm in regret.
Oh,
I was like, I had the 16-year-old video, and
oh,
there
yeah.
were two videos. There was another far more recent, maybe last year, where it starts with you and you're leading again another large contingent. It almost seemed professionally recorded, to be honest. Right? So it's now people are gonna go say Search it out, right? So,
Hey, I gotta
yeah, so
myself more often and pull up some of these things off of the internet. No, it's really, it's a passion for me. It's something that I love. It's like,
yeah.
Kyron said with the business.
And you do
I
it.
actually left Howard and said, you know what, I'm going to give myself a year to just focus on music. And then the Mystics called, and that's why I said, God had other plans. But the interesting thing about the Washington Mystics is that the head coach at the time, who's also the general manager, he kept asking me, will you join the staff, will you join? And I kept saying, I don't know. Let me think about it. There's other things I want to do. Give me a couple of months. And so when I went to sit down and talk to him, I kind of said, this is what I really wanted to do. And, I wasn't really thinking about coming on in this capacity. He said,
Right.
I was a musician first, but then I got married and I had to feed my family.
Wow.
So I started
Wow.
coaching basketball.
Wow.
So you never know where
Yeah.
people are. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of athletes aspire to be musicians, and a lot of musicians aspire to be
You
athletes.
see that a lot.
Yeah,
Those crossovers.
a lot.
You
There's
see it a lot.
a ton of crossovers. So,
Yeah.
so I love being in creative spaces. Right now, my creativity goes into helping people feel better. But I hope that at some point I can.
And I just want to point out again, the reason why I'm holding my head is because you do it at a high level. It's not like the average singing. I'm talking leading the way as you're a soloist
Yeah.
because you're leading the entire contingent, right? And you're doing it at a very high level. There's not a hint of being nervous, right?
I was gonna say
So-
I'm probably scared to death.
Well, if you're scared of death, you're good at tunnel vision because it's not showing in those videos. So yeah, man, I choked up, man. I wish I had just kept it in the bag, and yeah, but just a conscious decision, yeah.
I'm so
Oh, wow.
glad you refrained.
Ah,
Did not say, Michael was asking if there's an offseason for me to create music. There is. I didn't do such a good job with balancing it this year, so maybe this next offseason I can do. I just try to support my friends,
Right.
go and see them perform, and maybe go to the studio with them or rehearsals from time to time, so that I can just be in that environment and get a little bit of that, just falling on me
right.
secondarily.
Kyron, anything on your end as well that fits that mold? What would you, back in the day, before you started your professional career, what did you want to do?
That's a
What was
good
the
question.
mindset?
Yes. Well, I come from a family. My mom and dad were police officers. I'm not sure if that was one of my dream to be, but I know that's a good question. I always wanted to play professional basketball.
Wow.
That's just what when I left Grenada, that's what was on my mind slowly. Even as a little guy growing up,
Yeah.
sports was just on my mind. But so my parents, were police officers, and maybe that could have been the next option, but it just never happened.
Wow.
It never did.
Pushed
Yeah.
through, man, and
But
a lot
also just
materialized.
always-
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So, I have tons of material that I would have wanted to dive into. I feel like we could easily go through 2-3 episodes just diving into the career that you've established for yourself. In fact, both of you, with starting up businesses and taking care of athletes. The Olympic segment is its own body of work that we could dive into with the triple jump. We've just recently had an Olympian on in Lyndon Victor a couple episodes ago. So he was telling us about his prep, the injuries he struggled with. So that I would have just loved to go through some of those things with you, because your insight on injury rehab and the best ways to deal with it while performing, it would have been just the golden insight, right? That a podcast like this would thrive on, right? So, but I do respect time, and I know that we've gone past our agreed time for hosting you guys. Um, you know, what I want to go into is thanking you for being here. By the way, we do have a backstage talk, so you don't want to disconnect once I say bye. But definitely, Dr. Flagg and Kyron, I just really want to thank you both for jumping on. Kyron, you're the diplomat. You step in and step off whenever you want, of course. So, um, but and also Dr. Flagg, just taking out of your time. You're doing so much all at once, and you're one of the most decorated in terms of what you offer to the game of basketball right now. But not only that, all the other forms of sports, right? And I know the world of athletes, they respect you in that world highly for what you're bringing to the table. And we do look forward to seeing the Mystic perform well, keep injuries low, and really thrive with the upcoming season. That's going to be a joy to watch. And judging by the way Kyron just turned his head there, I know he shares the same sentiment too that I just shared.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be at the games again this year. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, just from all of us on the show, including Mike, we want to thank you again for joining us. Really, really honored to have you on the podcast.
I appreciate it, and even though, like I said, I'm behind the scenes and I don't typically, like to get in front of the camera, this has been great. Definitely, if I can make time to come back and talk a little bit more with you all, I'd be more than happy to do that. In between a crazy schedule, but
Yeah.
we can look at finding some time to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say, to tell, some players here to look out for the camp next month. It should be a great camp.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be some information coming out in the next couple days, probably a week or two, but definitely it's a camp that you want to attend, you want to learn, you want to ask questions.
So does that mean we could pull you in for another episode to talk specifically on the camp when you bring in that information?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, because that's going to be huge.
One or two of the instructors also, on the program too. Yeah.
When is the start of the camp? The date?
It's May 29th, 30th, and 31st. It's 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely we'll look at that and try to get you guys on to speak on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of good stuff.
All right. Well, everyone, this is the Collective Bargaining Podcast. I want to thank you all for taking this in. We know a lot of people tend to watch on demand because at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, it's a lot of whether it's your kids, whether it's the shows and all the stuff going on in everyone's lives, it's easy to catch us on demand. Check out YouTube. Check out right here within the group on Facebook, where you can check in. You can even ask us questions on demand, right? When watching the video on demand, we'll be there to answer because we do check the questions and comments. So feel free to dive in. And of course, look out for more. We'll be back, and hopefully in the future we can get Dr. Flagg on. I'm serious. I have so many questions given the expertise, man. It's amazing. So just thank you so much.
And I didn't write it, but if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, I'm under Team Sports Injury. It's TEAM Sports Injury, all one word. So follow along. I try to give behind the scenes views when I can, when it doesn't violate privacy, and try to talk about different topics in there as well.
Absolutely. Check it out, everyone, and we'll be back next week.
Same
time. Thank you.